Hello and welcome to the definitive tier list of Mekk-Knights, Yu-Gi-Oh's finest color mechanic archetype. Here we have the list with the worst spot being replaced with, oh, you're playing that, because most of the bad cards in this archetype are more or less questionable choices if anything else. First we have Girsu, the Orcus Mekk-Knight. Weird to start off with a blend of two archetypes, but anything in the World Legacy line generally does that anyway. Girsu blends Orcus and Mekk-Knight not very seamlessly. Girsu doesn't initially look like he's a good support for Mekk-Knights, but he actually serves a very unique purpose in his combos with World Legacy World Armor and Lib. And he places a token in your opponent's side of the field, so it makes your later cards alive going first or even going second. He probably deserves a staple status because the combo that he allows gets you 2 of your World Legacy spell or traps, which is a huge consistency boost. Next we have Mekk-Knight Avram. Mekk-Knight Avram is the weirdest card in the archetype as it has nothing to do with columns. It's a level 4 vanilla beat stick with 2k body, and that's kind of it. It has the Mekk-Knight name. Literally, you only ever play this for the extra name and the normal summon. But your normal summon is always very flexible. Usually your normal summon is reserved for Girsu in the modern day, but you can run this if you want the extra name. He doesn't provide a whole lot more value than that, so most people look at you and ask why you are playing that. Then we get on to Blue Sky. Blue Sky is the Searcher. Most of the Mekk-Knights, except for the normal summons, special summon themselves out to columns that have 2+ cards in that column. Blue Sky searches cards equal to the amount of cards on your opponent's side of the field in that column, which makes him the Searcher of the deck. And we all know where searchers go. Searchers go into staples. Fantastic card he is. Then we have Green Horizon. Green Horizon is the other one that's usually seen on and off in most lists. All it can do is that it fetches a Mekk-Knight from your graveyard when something battles it in its column, which there are definitely ways to force that to happen, but it's not usually an effect worth running all the time. You could use that slot for literally anything else. So it's more or less a tech choice. Run it if you like him, or run it if you're running this build. Same with Avram. Now we have the most miserable card in this archetype in Orange Sunset. Orange Sunset is one of the more miserable cards in this archetype. All he really does is special summon a Mekk-Knight from your hand when a card in his column that your opponent controls leaves the field by battle or any other reason. And this deck really has no problem special summoning anything to the field at any point in time. He has barely no attack with 800 attack and 3000 defense, making him the biggest ass in the archetype. You are only ever going to run him if you're running the Scars build. So he goes at the bottom of, oh, you're playing that. Next we have Red Moon. Red Moon is one of the 2 removal cards in this archetype. He banishes a Mekk-Knight monster from your graveyard to pop a monster in his opposing column, which makes him a pretty decent one-of. You almost always will get use of his effect, and you are always not upset to have him. Then we have Yellow Star. Like Red Moon, he banishes a Mekk-Knight from your graveyard to pop a spell or trap in the opposing column. A little less useful, but still removal. Can definitely sit there right next to his compatriot. Now we're getting on to good cards. Mekk-Knight Indigo Eclipse. Indigo Eclipse, better known as Move Man, does exactly what his name would suggest. He moves. In most archetypes, moving columns has no real benefit, but in this, it turns into disruption, which makes him very solid, and he has a soft once per turn, so you can move multiple times if you have more than one. He is a actual staple in the archetype, mainly because he's your primary disruption tool combined with your other cards that facilitate that. He's one of the 3 cards that always sees play in any Mekk-Knight list. He can go right there. Now we have a very good card in Purple Nightfall. Purple Nightfall targets a Mekk-Knight you control and banishes it to search any Mekk-Knight, which is very, very useful. Getting any of your tools, usually like blue sky, and popping off from there. He is a searcher, but he kind of is one of the main reasons why this deck even thrives to begin with. So I can definitely put him in busted carries the deck. That banishing effect can tag out any of your dudes, including himself, which often is what happens, to get any of your dudes and recur consistent card advantage. I guess I'll bump up Mekk-Knight Blue Sky in the same vein. Here we have Mekk-Knight Morningstar. Mekk-Knight Morningstar is an incredibly punishing card for your opponent who chooses not to read your cards. What this can do is it can discard a Mekk-Knight monster or World Legacy card to search out one of your World Legacy spells or traps, your main disruption for this deck. But what else it does is that it is a big old battle trick. Your opponent cannot destroy Mekk-Knights if they are not in the same column, and no battle damage is done. So if they don't play to your columns, then you're never going to battle over your dudes. And Moveman can make that even more tricky when he can force you to get the wrong column. And for that, he is just kind of like you automatically run two of him in almost every single list. He is too good not to run. And that battle trick comes up more often than you'd think. But on a less great note, we have Spectrum Supreme. Spectrum Supreme is far from a bad card. He can remove a card in his column to special summon one of your Mekk-Knights from your deck, as well as attack directly if he's not pointing to anything, which are cute, but oftentimes you won't be making this in most of your boards and will only ever make this to push for game. He's decent tech choice if you like him. Usually you can get away with running one copy. Here we have the true boss monster of this deck, Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax. A blend between Mekk-Knights and Crusadia. It can beat over pretty much everything, gaining the attack of any special summon monster that battles on a quick effect, and if it's removed from the field, it shuffles a card back. But its most useful trait is that it prevents everything from targeting your dudes except for him, including for attacks. Combine this with like an IP Masquerena, and he is a house to deal with, a real pain in the ass. He's a staple only because of how good he is as a boss monster, not because he fulfills any purpose in the archetype itself. So I would definitely put him in not upset to have him on the top end, almost close to staple status. Oh my god, it is raining. Here we have World Legacy Scars, starting with the spell and traps, the field spell of the archetype. And this is mainly what you use for a more gimmicky build dedicated towards it. It gives your Mekk-Knights 300 attack and defense. You can discard a Mekk-Knight or World Legacy card to draw a card, but its biggest attribute is that if you banish 8 Mekk-Knight monsters with different names from your graveyard or face up on your field, send your opponent's entire hand and extra deck to the graveyard. This is really hard to do, but it is incredibly funny. But it is the entire reason why Oh You're Playing That exists. If you see somebody playing Orange Sunset, or like, I mean Avram's not that bad, but like if you see people playing Orange Sunset, they're probably going to be playing Scars, and they're probably going to be trying to resolve it. And if they do kind of win the game. But it's a gimmick, and it's not consistent, so it's kind of bad. And it can stay there. But here we have an extra good card. It's World Legacy Memory. It's E-Tally for Mekk-Knights. You E-Tally out a Mekk-Knight, you're locked into Mekk-Knights. It's a really good card, it carries the deck. What more do I need to say? Here we have World Legacy Key. A continuous spell that adds a banished Mekk-Knight monster to your hand, but its real driving factor is that activated effects of trap cards in the same column as your Mekk-Knight monsters are negated. And this is a common theme with the next two spells and traps we have. This one being this Trap Negator. Its application to grab a banished card is not that bad, considering you probably will be doing that anyway with Purple Nightfall. And being able to negate a few traps here and there is never a bad thing. So you can realistically run it as a tech choice. It's less considerable these days, but you can run it by preference. One you can't run by preference, though, is World Legacy Secrets. World Legacy Secrets is Call of the Haunted for level 5 or higher monsters. But its main drive is it's the monster effect negator. Any activated effects of monsters in the same column as Mekk-Knights will be negated. And therefore, special summon a Mekk-Knight on its own acts as disruption. Bring out a Indigo Eclipse for an additional disruption. It does a lot of work. It puts in a lot of work. First we had traps, then we had monster effects. Now we have spells. The one that has one of the least useful effects, where it just gives one of your level 5 or higher monsters a 1000 attack boost. But you really run this because you can essentially use this as an Imperial Order with your Mekk-Knights. Mekk-Knights in the same column as spells will have them negated. And it's usually a tech choice, but I'm going to say it's not upset to have, because negating spells, especially in this format and in most formats, is never a bad thing. This is my own personal deck list of Mekk-Knights. I built it more in a pure variant. You can realistically run any amount of engines that you feel like in this deck, as it's fairly unrestrictive other than War Legacy Memory. Here's the card by card. First we have 3 Blue Sky, the Searcher, 3 Purple Nightfall, more searching, and 2 Move Man, because you don't need more than 2. 1 Red Moon, 1 Yellow Star for removal, 3 Girsu, primarily for the World Armor combo, in combination with War Legacy Succession. Mekk-Knight Avram, because I wanted the extra body. Dino Wrestler Pankratops, because going second is the name of the game for this deck, and 3 Ash, hand traps. And on to a Kaiju package. 2 Dogoran, 2 Gamma Seal, and Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. This put in more work than I expected it to, and it's cuttable if you don't like the Kaijus. 3 Aperia as my choice of normal summon. 1 Mind Control to steal my opponent's cards as we're going second. A Monster Reborn, an Upstart, Key, 3 Memory, a Whispers, and 2 Secrets. Onto the extra deck, 2 Morning Star, the standard ratio, a Spectrum Supreme, Abramax, and 2 Lib to go with the Orcus combo. Access Code Talker, Nightmare Phoenix, Link Spider, Salamangreat, Almirage, Galatea to go into Dingirsu because we have the Orcus name, and a Galaxy Eyes package of Cypher, Cypher Blade, and Full Armor Photon. So that's the list. If you have any changes you'd want to make, put them down in the comments below. Subscribe if you enjoyed yourself. And I have a Twitch that I stream on infrequently, and a Twitter where I just kind of post pictures of my puppy on, so it's there. Until next time, mind your columns.